welcome back to another video of the magic and the mundane. We're changing our altar from Imbolc to Ostara, also known as the Spring Equinox. The Spring Equinox is a moment of balance, so this is where day and night are equal, and slowly the wheel, ever shifting, turns fully towards the light. Now, before I talk to you about Ostara, I want to share a conversation that I had with another witch whose practice is more rooted in the Romany and folk tradition. And our conversation about altars made me pause and really reflect, and made me really look at my own altar. And I realise it's changed. It's no longer the structured, traditional, in brackets, Wiccan style altar that I started with. Instead, it's become something more fluid, essentially a space for offerings, food, drink, coins, small items, things I feel that my deities and ancestors would appreciate. Less about structure, more about relationship. So, as you can see, in this space, I honour Anubis. The items that I keep for him, his offering and the presents, he is a steady and grounding energy within my practice, often associated with dogs, so whenever I see a dog, I always think of him. And I think that's what Ostara, or the Spring Equinox, really invites us to do. So it's not just about celebrating the growth that we are continuously seeing in the world around us, but to notice the changes within ourselves, so how our practices shift, how our relationships deepen, and whilst the year begins again and we begin our time again, we do it differently year upon year upon year. This altar isn't perfect, it isn't fixed. Just like spring, it's growing. It is like the season that it represents at the moment. On the opposite corner to Anubis, I have recently started to connect with a goddess, someone who is a newer presence for me, who is bringing a sense of courage and confidence and a bit of quiet strength. Hecate. So this altar reflects both of them in its own way. Now onto the practices and a little bit of history of Ostara. Ostara and the Spring Equinox is where the amount of light is the same as the amount of nighttime. But here we begin to see that the light overtakes the darkness. It marks a true shift away from Imbolc, where there we are stirrings and the renewal and the new beginnings, to fully fledged birth of spring. The earth has awakened, the days are lengthening, life begins to return in more visible ways than the quiet nature of Imbolc. Now the history of it, it's often linked to a Germanic figure, I'm probably butchering this, Ostara, who is associated with dawn and renewal. And though historical references are limited, this is probably where the term Easter comes from, possibly. And we know that Easter, we have chocolate, eggs, bunny rabbits, that kind of thing. And these symbols and these themes are actually a lot older than what we realise. This festival is shaped by both seasonal observations and modern interpretation. So these things, the eggs, the hairs, the flowers, that kind of thing, they're not just decorations. They do reflect fertility, potential, life beginning again. And it almost feels like the edge of becoming. Like we're not quite in a full fledge of summer yet. So here we can summarise and say that it's not just the promise of spring anymore. The spring equinox is the beginning of spring. However you celebrate this turning of the wheel, I hope it may bring balance, renewal, and the courage to grow into something new, and reflect on how much you've grown in this past year. Blessed be, so mote it be. See you in the next video.